Well, one of the biggest myths out there again is a calm rabbit is a good thing. Well, absolutely not. I think, that's because their behavior is so misunderstood. And they hide pain because, let's face it, there's so many predators out there in the wild that are waiting to get them. So they do hide everything. Any sort of weakness they will try and hide. So this whole idea of a rabbit being calm and relaxed, and that's definitely a good sign. It's not always the case, is it?
Welcome to The Consult Room, the podcast where we explore the evolving world of modern pet care. I'm Dr Paul Manktelow, a UK veterinary surgeon with a deep passion for pet health and welfare. In each episode, I'll be exploring key issues, challenging perspectives, and offering expert insight and practical advice. Because ultimately, my mission is to improve the lives of pets and the people who love them. Today, we're continuing our Things You Never Knew series, but this time we're talking about all things rabbits. Now, rabbits are one of the most popular pets in the UK, the third most popular, I believe, but they're also one of the most misunderstood. And to help me unpack some of the biggest myths and most surprising facts, I'm joined again by Annie. Now, Annie Clark is a veterinary nurse, part of the Consult Room home team, and I believe has an interest in rabbit health and welfare. So this should be a very good conversation. Annie, great to have you back on the podcast.
Yeah, great to be back. And yeah, looking forward to talking all things bunny.
So what are your views on rabbits as a veterinary nurse?
If you want the honest answer is, they put the fear of God in me. If you have a rabbit in hospital, I think any veterinary professional will testify to this, they're normally very sick unless they're in for a routine procedure. If you've had a rabbit that's hospitalised, generally they're very, very poorly, which makes them very, very high risk. So, it's they do put the fear of God in me a little bit because they're actually very, very difficult to nurse. So, I love rabbits, but yeah, they're definitely one of the more trickier customers, so to speak.
And we're going to unpack the reasons why that's the case later. I mean, from my own perspective, I do really like rabbits. I'm quite early on in my career, took a special interest in rabbits and did quite a lot of extra training and CPD on it. But ultimately, I found that made me sort of the in-house expert on rabbits in the hospital I worked. So every single rabbit came to me. So I did get pretty confident doing the scary things like rabbit anesthetics, which can be, particularly challenging for all the reasons that you've just described. So let's dive in. I'm going to kick off with the sort of the first myth that we hear about rabbits, and that is that they are easy and low maintenance pets. Thoughts?
Yeah, no, isn't that just one of the biggest misconceptions out there? And it's really sad because you still hear it now, I think. Being the benefit of being a mum and doing the school run, and you still hear these things when people are talking about the pets that they've got, or kids come over and talk about the pets, and the rabbits being this really nice, fluffy, easy little thing that you can put in a hutch and stroke and feed with a bit of carrot and hay to. Do you know what I mean? It's such a misconception, and they're not the starter pets that people think they are for children, because the reality is they're actually, as I said before, they're just incredibly complex, and they're really hard to read as well. So I think that's a shame that it still is very much a myth, isn't it, really?
Yeah, and they can live between 8 and 12 years generally, so they are a really, really long-term commitment. And I think working in the veterinary and animal welfare space for so long, rabbits are often highlighted as one of the most neglected pets in terms of care standards, and they're often underestimated compared to cats and dogs, where their needs might be a bit better understood. But I think the reality is that they do have quite complex dietary needs. They exhibit really subtle behaviour, and there's a really high risk of what we consider preventable disease. So I think if anybody out there is thinking of that starter pet for your kids, you really do need to think carefully and do your research before you get one.
Oh, I completely agree. Absolutely. And it's not the starter pet for a child that you think. I would argue that it's as much, if not more, work than having a cat or a dog, if you're doing it right. So, yeah.
Well, let's find out why. So what's the second sort of fact or myth you've got for us?
Well, I think another thing as well is this kind of belief that, rabbits need a companion. They need to have a friend. And is that the truth? Do they need to have a companion or not?
Well, the answer is yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it's really sad to think of all these rabbits that have been kept in isolation because
Yeah.
actually they are highly, highly social animals. Now they live in groups in the wild. And we know that lone rabbits exhibit signs of increased stress, reduced activity, and they do have behavioral changes relating to that sense of isolation. I think the best advice to be given is that they should be kept in neutered pairs.
Yeah.
And that really allows them to exhibit this natural behavior, which is, lots of grooming each other. They generally tend to sleep together and also playing as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, people often interpret like that companionship as well. We've got, human companionship, but that interaction is definitely not a substitute, is it?
No, it's not. And actually, you tend to find that lone rabbits, in my experience anyway, that live indoors with their people, become incredibly territorial over them, and actually almost borderline aggressive because they're not able to sort of express their normal natural behaviours that they would if they had other bunnies around them, and so therefore they become quite territorial and quite aggressive in my experience.
Yes. So never keep a rabbit on its own. And I think the neutered bit is really important, isn't it? Because we've all heard the phrase breeding like rabbits, which they absolutely do. And I think they've got quite a short gestation period, haven't they? So, I mean, it's only a few days.
Testing my memory now, I can't think how long the gestation period is for a rabbit.
Yeah, but I think they can breed very, very prolifically. So,
Super, super quick, yeah, for sure, and, especially if you with boys, again, that kind of like they're quite territorial can be quite territorial, so it's again, it just kind of reinforces that message that having them neutered does actually make a difference, especially if you're having a group setting,
mm.
as well. So, yeah, not to have 2 bucks at the same time, because as they go through sort of their puberty stage, then you can get a lot of issues as well.
So the next myth, it's not actually really a myth, but thanks to Bugs Bunny, there is a misconception that rabbits eat carrots. So discuss why we put that as a myth.
I know, and it's in all the picture books, isn't it? Like all the kids' picture books, you have a rabbit, it's sat there with a carrot. It seems to kind of be this thing that's hand in glove, literally, with rabbits. But it's not their main diet at all. I mean, of course, in the wild, bunnies might, hop into a farmer's field and dig up a few carrots. But generally speaking, most of the time, what they are able to access in the wild and is their most natural form of food is grass or hay or dry grass, so that's like 80 to 90% of their diet, and that's what it should be, and that kind of just supports all of their normal gut movement. It helps to wear down those teeth, which we'll talk about in a bit as well, because there's another myth surrounding bunny's teeth, and carrots also really high in sugar as well, so if you're gonna just feed your bunny carrots, they're gonna get quite fat quite quickly. So yeah, it's definitely a myth. Rabbits do not only eat carrots. It should not be a primary part of their nutrition. It's a treat. It's like chocolate to us. It's a treat. It's not something that they should have every single day.
Yeah, it's like saying I eat cake. I mean, I do, but I
You
definitely
eat it all
wouldn't
day.
very well if that's all I ate every day. I think there has been a lot of work done in this space, particularly by a lot of the sort of welfare organisations, and that every year there's sort of a lot of campaigning around the correct diet for rabbits. But traditionally, those muesli diets were very sort of common, weren't they?
Yeah,
And it was like, oh, muesli diet, a bit of carrot, maybe a little bit of hay. But ultimately, rabbits can pick at them, and they were quite calorific, and they didn't have that long chain fibre that is really, really important for really good, healthy gut movement.
agreed.
And they were also linked to dental disease and obesity, as you said. So I think, yeah, 80-90% hay, and then maybe even carrot tops. They're probably better than the actual carrot themselves, aren't
Yeah.
they?
Yeah, they probably are actually, thinking about it. And
Mm,
why waste the carrot tops when you're doing your cooking then? Just give them to your bunny.
exactly. So, what's the next fact?
Yeah, that kind of leads on, doesn't it? We just mentioned briefly there about dental wear and how hay really helps maintain rabbits' teeth. And, something that is a fact rather than a myth, actually, is that rabbits' teeth are continually growing, unlike our own. So yeah, do you want to explain, as you're the bunny expert back in the day, why that is?
Well, rabbits' teeth can grow up to 2 to 3 millimeters per week,
Right.
which is really quite scary when you think about it, isn't it? When you think of our own teeth and how they're fixed. But that means that they require constant wear. Now, as we've already talked about, incorrect diet doesn't allow that wear. And
No.
what you end up is sort of the teeth overgrowth. And generally, the way that you get the overgrowth is in the form of spurs. So it's not like all the teeth grow evenly. You end up with that uneven wear. So you get these sort of spikes on one side of the teeth,
Mm.
and they ultimately cut into either the tongue or into the what we call the buccal surface or the lip, the inside of the lip, and cause ulcers. And that ultimately
Mm.
stops the rabbit eating. Now, it's quite a procedure to sort of get those, often under sedation or anaesthetic. You
Mhm.
often have to clip, and these are teeth. They're pretty hard. You have to clip them with the clippers. You have to burn them and file them and make them really, really smooth. Sometimes you have to burr the incisors and get them into a good shape as well. It's a risk because of the increased anaesthetic risk of
Mhm.
rabbits. But you sometimes find as well that the tooth roots, instead of growing into the mouth, will grow into the other way, into the skull, and you end up with disruptions around sort of the nasolacrimal ducts. So you get a lot of eye discharge, and yeah,
Yeah.
I've seen some rabbits with some really, really sort of poor teeth
Mm.
and with abscesses and things like that. But ultimately, if rabbits don't eat, they end up with this condition called gut stasis, which is
Yeah.
really life-threatening. And I guess one of the other complicated problems is rabbits hide pain. So they often present quite late when these spurs
Yeah.
and these dental issues are quite advanced. And once you have to start down that road, I've seen rabbits where you're having to do it really regularly, like on a monthly to 6 weekly basis, and
Yeah.
it's not particularly great for them. So diet is the key, absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah, for sure. I mean, can you just imagine having these sharp spikes growing off your teeth and digging in? I mean, yeah, just horrible. And yeah, that I have seen those abscesses as well when they get those really, really bad infections. And but I think that also leads us on to sort of the next thing, doesn't it? You said there about rabbits and how they hide pain. Well, one of the biggest myths out there is, again, is a calm rabbit is a good thing. Well, absolutely not. I think, that's because their behavior is so misunderstood. And they hide pain because, let's face it, there's so many predators out there in the wild that are waiting to get them. So they do hide everything. Any sort of weakness they will try and hide. So this whole idea of a rabbit being calm and relaxed, and that's definitely a good sign. It's not always the case, is it? They can actually be incredibly uncomfortable or very, very sick in that situation.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, they are a prey species,
Yeah.
so they have evolved to sort of hide weakness as such. But the signs of stress in rabbits can be really, really subtle. It can be freezing, just reduced movement, even as subtle as the ear position changes.
Yeah.
But if your rabbit is really, really quiet, don't misinterpret that as they're content.
Yeah.
And then there's some specific things that they need, isn't there, in terms of that prey species sort of element.
Yeah, they do. I mean, they need to, we talk about husbandry as well later, I think, but we need to make sure that they feel safe and secure in their environments. They need to have like really good hiding spaces. They also, like pretty much all companion animals, I think, they need that kind of predictability, that predictable environment, that routine. So, having lots of people coming in and out where they live, lots of traffic, lots of people traffic, lots of other animal traffic as well, more specifically, because as you say, we are a prey species. Then that needs to be kept to a minimum to make sure their stress levels are really sort of reduced. But stress is a killer for everything, isn't it? It's a killer for so many things, and it's also proven that stress is one of the big primary causes for the gut stasis that you talked about before, which is a real concern for rabbits, and it is life threatening.
Let's do some quick fire surprising rabbit biology facts. So I'm going to kick off here. There's a few things that people probably don't know. So rabbits are not rodents. People often think they are, but they are lagomorphs, which puts them in a different class.
Yeah.
So let's stop talking about them as rodents because they're not. Anything else that you know that people might not know?
Yeah, interesting. So rabbits have 360-degree vision, and they're going to need it. As I say, they are very much prey species. They need to be able to see, literally have eyes in the back of their heads at all times to keep themselves as safe as possible. But there is a blind spot, which is kind of directly in front of their nose. But something that I didn't know, I actually did not know this until fairly recently, which is quite surprising, is that rabbits can't actually vomit. Not in the way that you or I can or do, or cats and dogs. They actually can't vomit, which is another reason why it makes their kind of gut issues so much more serious.
Just going back to you, I'm going to challenge your fact on the 360-degree vision. How can they have 360-degree vision and they have a blind spot in front of the nose? Maybe it's more 359-degree vision.
Yeah, maybe there's a few degrees off there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the important thing is that they can see completely behind them as well due to their eye position. Which is interesting. I did know about rabbits not being able to vomit. And yes, that does make gut issues a lot more serious in them. One other fact I know about rabbits is that their ears actually regulate their temperature.
Yes.
Really, really key for cooling them down. And they've actually got some pretty big blood vessels in the ears. And actually, when we are hospitalizing rabbits, we often use the ear vein to place intravenous catheters in, because they're actually quite easy to, I say they're easier, some of them are quite small, especially in the little rabbits, but they're a lot easier to access than the cephalic vein in the foreleg, which we use generally for cats and dogs. But you can see when rabbits are warm or hot, those vessels really do dilate, so you can really see them because they've been used for cooling. Another fact I have is around, again, it's this related to them being a prey species, but they can sleep with their eyes open. So that can be a little bit unnerving for people who might not be recognizing that their rabbit is actually asleep, but sometimes they sleep with their eyes open again, and that's for that adaptation to early warning signs of predators. So anything else, any other facts?
Yeah, I have got one other, but before I go to that, I was just going to say as well, if you do have a bunny and you notice that they're sleeping with their eyes open, and you've identified that they are actually sleeping with their eyes open, it might be that you just haven't quite got the husbandry right, because a really relaxed bunny will sleep with their eyes closed. So just something to be, I think, be aware of and be mindful of if you've got bunnies at home. But yeah, a bit of a fun fact to end that one then is, like, rabbits, we know that they can move quickly, and they can run at speeds of up to 30 to 35 miles an hour, which is crazy.
It is, and I'm sure hares can probably run faster than that, can't they?
Yeah, I bet they can.
Yeah. So there are some weird behaviours that rabbits exhibit, and I say weird because these are the things that people often contact us as veterinary professionals and say, my rabbit's doing this, is it normal? And often it absolutely is. So what are some of those things?
Yeah, so interesting, this one. So rabbits, before they pass poo pellets, as we know and see them in their environment, they actually eat something called pre-poops, which are called cecotrophs. It's rare that you actually see rabbits eat this. I can't think of many occasions where I've actually seen them do it, but if you do see them, that's when people then call us and like, oh, my bunny's eating its own poo, is that normal? So it's actually really, really important that they do this, because it is essential for their nutrition. So these cecotrophs are really rich in vitamins and protein, and they need to eat them in order to keep their digestive system working and functioning properly. So although you don't tend to see them do this that often, if you do, it's absolutely normal. And another one, I love this word. I absolutely love this word, binkying. Lots of bunnies call binky. This is probably the reason why, is they do like this little jump and a little twist when they're happy. And again, some people might misinterpret that as them kind of being stressed or upset or angry, or even like it being some sort of like weird neurological episode. And it's not. It's just like completely and utterly normal. And actually, it's a sign they're really, really happy. What about you? Have you ever had any?
I think teeth grinding is probably the biggest one that
Yeah.
people report. And it's really important to note that actually, if it's a very soft sort of relaxed teeth grind, it could be a sign that your rabbit's actually quite content. And they can sometimes do it when they're quite chilled. But actually, if it's very loud, it could be a sign that your rabbit's in pain. And it reminds me of that conversation we had about cats purring as well, how it can have different meanings, and you've got to look at sort of
Yeah.
holistically at the whole animal to try and understand not just what it's doing, but the circumstances that it's in as well.
Yeah.
And it can be quite subtle, the difference between a sort of a soft, calm teeth grind and
Yeah.
a sort of a louder one, indicating that there might be a problem. But yeah, so that's one of the common misconceptions. And I just wanted to mention as well something called trancing, which when I first graduated over 20 years ago, I was taught that this was a really good way of being able to examine rabbits. And what you do with them is you sort of turn them on their backs,
Yeah.
and they go into this what's called a tonic immobility phase where they just freeze.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I was taught back in the day that's a really good way if you want to examine in their mouths. You can pretty much do all that and they don't really struggle. But it's since been determined that actually this is not a good thing. This
Uh,
is actually a fear response. It's not relaxation. It's
uh,
they're freezing and they're quite stressed and fearful. So we don't do that anymore to examine rabbits,
no.
thank goodness. But it's just interesting how, you know, as our understanding of these species progresses, that what we thought was, you know, a good way to examine animals or to
Yeah.
handle them has actually become something that we recognise is not great from a welfare perspective. So no more trancing, please.
No. Definitely. And I think that's the thing is with any animal that exhibits behavior that we're not really sure of, it might look strange, but it could be completely normal. But equally, it could be that they're actually really scared. And especially with bunnies, we know that they have that flight, fight, or freeze response. And it's making sure you can identify which it is and why they're doing it. But I think you said about that shift, and we don't do that anymore. I think another shift as well is about how we house our bunnies now, which traditionally it was, the rabbit hutch in the back of the garden, which is still very much is the case. But I do think there is a bit of a shift there. What do you think?
Yeah, so is a hutch enough, I guess, is the last sort of question in this, isn't it?
Yeah.
Um, and I think there's been a lot of movement on this in the welfare sort of space. Traditional hutches recognise they're too small. It's also recognised that rabbits need to be able to stand upright, fully upright. That's normal for them.
Yeah.
Stretch fully and actually be able to run and hop. And there are some really good guidelines now
Yeah.
around minimum hutch sizes, which really do far exceed sort of what the old standards were. But it's also really important that they are have quite a lot of environmental enrichment when you consider what their normal behaviours are:
Yeah.
digging, foraging, hiding, all that sort of stuff. Like they have to have an environment that allows them to exhibit those natural
Yeah.
behaviours. And ultimately, there is now more popular the people keeping rabbits indoors. I mean, what
Yeah.
do you think about that?
Yeah, there's definitely I come across way more in sort of house bunnies, and they're litter trained and all sorts, and in some ways that's lovely. But I do think even if you have a great indoor setup and they've got like free roam almost of your home, they still need to have that outdoor space. And if you haven't got the outdoor space, as you said, it must be able to replicate um something so that they can do that digging and foraging, because you don't want them digging up your carpet and they wouldn't be able to, so it's not going to satisfy that need. So I think it is really important with this shift to sort of more house bunnies that we still recognize they do need kind of that replication of their natural environment as much as possible. And yeah, these bunnies will inevitably be much, much happier in that situation and live much more fulfilled lives and be a lot less stressed as well, I would have thought, just by making sure that we've got that. It just sounds like such a basic thing, isn't it? Just to get their environment right. But it's so important. It's important for all of us.
They need toys. Rabbits need toys.
They do, don't they? They love playing, actually.
And I think that being able to exhibit natural behaviour does describe a lot of the welfare problems we do see in rabbits, particularly obesity, stress, behavioural issues. Similar, in actual fact, to what we talked about when we did this episode on cats as well.
Yeah.
But actually, a well thought out environment, stimulation, both physical and mental, can actually help improve your rabbit's health and welfare and sort of, reduce the risk of a lot of these problems. Well, that's been really interesting, a deep dive into rabbits, refreshing my my lagomorph knowledge. I think it's fair to say that rabbits are a lot more complex than people realise. Any final thoughts for our Bugs Bunnies out there?
I think my final thought would be, don't ever be put off getting a rabbit because they're difficult. Just do your research. It's like anything. If you're going to get a dog and you're not sure what dog's going to fit you, you should then do your research as to what breed's going to work for you and your lifestyle. If you decide that you're going to go for a bunny, just make sure you do your research and make sure that you have got the time and energy to put into them, because they are difficult, they are hard work, but they're also really fulfilling as well, and they can be really loving and really affectionate. So yeah, don't be put off, but just make sure you're well prepared.
Great final thoughts. Do your research and listen to this podcast, and then it'll give you all the information that you need. Thank you for coming back on and sharing your insight. What species we're going to do next? Because this was actually really popular with the cats one, wasn't it? So this is why we did rabbits. What do you think we should do next?
Well, I think we should do guinea pigs next, especially with the sort of change in legislation. It's not in this country, admittedly, but you never know. It might be down the line with Switzerland now saying it's mandatory that guinea pigs must have companions. I feel like there's some facts and some information that we can share there about guinea pigs. I think that's what we'll do next.
Okay, well, let's see you on the next episode. It's all about guinea pigs. Thank you for joining. Thank you for listening to this episode. You'll find all the relevant links to this conversation in the show notes. If you enjoyed it, please follow us and leave a review. It really helps other people discover the podcast. For more insights on topics like this, you can connect with me on social media at Dr Paul the Vet, or check out my website, theconsultroom.co.uk.